talk about fears. Let's talk about love. Yeah, I got fears, but I ain't got no love. Yes, I got fears. Fear of plane crash. Fear of car crash. Oh, fear of sex. Fear of alcohol.
Okay, so welcome to Monday. Monday means solved or unsolved in a new week, a new case. And this one is the Girl Scout murders from Locust Grove, Oklahoma. Wasn't familiar with this at all, but I was doing some researching and it looked challenging in a way, and it also looked like it was something that I could do a crime scene assessment on, to do a little bit of criminal profiling and to incorporate every aspect of solving cases such as victimology, suspectology, criminal profiling, crime scene assessment, those type of things. But it also has a lot about the justice system and whether it's fair, whether it's unfair, those types of things. So it is a compelling story. But in that compelling story, we must never forget the victims and the victims' families. Now, this happened June 13th, 1977. So we're many decades removed. But the hurt and the despair, not only for the victims' families, but the police officers and investigators involved, can't be overstated. As I've been doing some research on this case, I have grown to not only admire some of the investigators that were on scene that day, but also the victims' families. And I've always been, one to empathize with these victims' families, but this one, man. So let's get into it a little bit, and I'll give you the particulars on what we're going to do this week in this case. So the Girl Scout murders took place June 13, 1977, Camp Scott in Locust Grove, Oklahoma. Now, everybody knows what the Girl Scouts is, but I think it was more prevalent back then than it is today. Maybe I'm wrong, but this was Girl Scout camp. Girls would go, they had tents set up, and you would, spend a couple of weeks at camp during the summer. That's what you did. Well, on this particular day, in June, particular night, Lori Farmer, Denise Milner, and Michelle Geis, they were aged, I believe, 8, 9, and 10, and I will confirm that come Wednesday for the deep dive. They were found dead. From what I understand, 2 of them inside their sleeping bags, 1 of them beside their sleeping bag, all of them pulled from the tent. There was blood evidence inside their tent. Autopsy showed that 2 of them were sexually assaulted. 2 of them died from blunt force trauma. Now remember what blunt force trauma is, being struck by an object. The 3rd one was strangled to death. Evidence at the scene included a flashlight that was allegedly left by the offender. And there were some things inside that flashlight that would lead to point to a particular party. There was a fingerprint on the flashlight. There was newspapers. There were photographs found in a cave not too far from the site. Footprint in blood at the scene. So there's a lot to go on, right? A lot more than a lot of other cases that we've looked at. A suspect is developed in the case. A local Cherokee Indian who was a star athlete who had been arrested previously, had broken out of jail, and had been on the run for a number of years. His name being Gene Leroy Hart. We're going to look at his past behavior. Just like any case that I've come across, and you've come across, whether it's Scott Peterson, whether it's Darlie Routier, whether it's Jeffrey McDonald, whether it's O.J. Simpson. You have cases where people believe that, yes, the evidence points towards us, but we can't believe it. And then you have people, it's not them, no matter what the evidence says. We're going to look at that. And as always, it's very important to remember post-offense, pre-offense behaviors, MO, signature, if there is any. A lot of people get confused or tied up around signature. Signature isn't always available. Listen, serial murder is rare, contrary to popular belief. So you may not have signature. You may not have case linkage. But what you do have is you can look at past criminal history. Usually that's a good indicator of future criminal history, if there is going to be any. Suspectology, very important. What type of person are we looking at? Was this a organized crime? Disorganized? Crime scene will tell us that. Was it planned? Was it blitz style? All those type of aspects of the crime will tell us, what type of offender we're looking for. In a lot of these cases, you're going to have circumstantial evidence. Circumstantial evidence is not as good as direct evidence. We all know that. However, when you have a lot of circumstantial evidence, sometimes that's as best as you get. And does that person get convicted on circumstantial evidence? Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. You're never going to have everybody agree 100% that somebody is guilty. You're just not. You're just not. Never. 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 Did I say never? I mean never. You could have somebody that's on videotape, clear as day, shooting somebody, and they'll say, "No, it wasn't him. The video was doctored." So you'll never get it. You'll never get it. You just have to do, in your mind, put the pieces together and say, yes, it's possible, but is it probable? And sometimes that's the best you get. I got a lot more research to do on this case because there is a lot of, not evidence. I went over most of the evidence. But there's just a lot. And again, I don't get on web boards. I don't particularly like the internet, but I will use newspaper clippings. I will use trial transcripts. And that's what I'll go off of. I will go back and look at, past behaviors. pre-offense behaviors, post-offense behaviors. I have no bias in any of these. Okay? As a detective in law enforcement for 15, 16 years, having run a cold case organization that had the very best in the business at doing this, I've seen a lot of crime scenes. I've seen a lot of reports, a lot of criminal profiles done by the best. I've studied, my master's degree study was in criminal profiling. I got to study FBI criminal profiling hands-on with the best that there is. And being able to think outside the box, but use that experience into creating what you see and what you feel, and having that passion when it's not strictly a job. It's not a job. It's what you want. You want to help these people. This case is something else. I don't know if I've done a case. I was watching an interview with the parents of these 3 victims. My daughter's that age. How they can still hold it together. I have so much admiration for them. But they were reading the final letters that these girls wrote from camp, just hours before they were murdered. Just, man, he grabs you. I can't even imagine. I just can't. And I watched one of the investigators at the scene, at this crime scene, explain how he unzipped the sleeping bag and found one of the girls in there, and it looked like she was just sleeping. And he started to cry. So when people say that investigators don't care, take a look at that interview and tell me that investigator didn't care, and how tough it is to see that stuff day in, day out. We're going to talk about Native American folklore and how these investigators said that played a role and how they tracked down this guy. This guy he is said to be able to shapeshift. Native American medicine man would give him medicine, and they would hide him out because they felt that he was innocent. And how he would laugh about how the bloodhounds would track him into an open field and then lose the scent because he would turn into a bird of prey. One of the Native American investigators talked about being out in the hills. These guys slept out in the woods after this guy. That's dedication. He talks about building a fire and having a fire there and sleeping out, and a cat pouncing on his chest and screaming and then taking off in the middle of the night. Scared him half to death. And the first thing he thought of was Gene Leroy Hart saying how he could shapeshift into animals and disappear. Native American lore. Is it all smoke and mirrors? Or is there truth to it? Supposedly a medicine man put a curse on the bloodhounds that were tracking him. saying that the dogs would die. And they did. During the search, one got hit by a car. One died allegedly of heat stroke. Three victims. What we have to look at is the type of individual that would not only murder but rape three preteen girls in a campsite with others around. It was in a tent that was the furthest removed from the other ones, but it was still there. There was allegedly a note that was written in one of the tents stating that they were going to kill three girls. And that came true. We're going to look more into that. We're going to try to determine what type of individual committed this crime based off the crime scene. Then we'll go into all the evidence. And did it point to Gene Leroy Hart or somebody else? And if it's somebody else, we'll go down that road. But where does the evidence point us to? We're going to talk about some things that the jurors didn't hear. And would that impact one way or the other? Folks, let me explain something to you. And don't get it twisted and think that people, it's not about race. When it comes to three little girls, when it comes to the West Memphis Three and three little boys, I promise you, every investigator will work their ass off to arrest the right people. Now, are there pressures? Yes. Can some people handle that pressure and continue to do the right thing? Yes. But are there others that can't handle that pressure and just want to get it solved and off of their desk? Yes, there are. Has planting of evidence happened before? Yes, it has. Did it happen in this case? It's been alleged, and we're going to look into that. People want to make heroes out of some of these killers. Ted Bundy. Another Indian, Leonard Pelletier, who killed one or two FBI agents. Justified? Charles Manson, the most famous of them all. People walk around with t-shirts with Charles Manson. Is he a serial killer? Nope. Did he mastermind one of the most infamous cases and murders ever? Absolutely. But yet, he's worshipped. The Night Stalker, Richard Ramirez, one of the most despicable killers that's ever walked this earth. He has groupies. He has fans. What does that say about us as a society? Is that the case here with Gene Leroy Hart, a Cherokee athlete Indian who just no one can believe did this? Is it because he didn't do it? Or is it because he's Native American and they're tired of being oppressed? Which they were. But does that take away his guilt because you feel a certain way about the white people? Well, we're going to get into that. You can't let the color of somebody's skin and their ancestry dictate the justice system. If the guilty party and the evidence shows that they're guilty, it doesn't matter if they're Native American or black or Hispanic or white. If they're guilty, they're guilty. But if it shows the other way, that they're not, it's always about the truth. It has to always be about the truth. Reasonable doubt is one thing. Innocence is another. So I'm going to leave it with you to think about as we move forward this week. So that's it. Girl Scout murders, June 13th, 1977. 3 victims. We're going to get into all of it on Wednesday. But remember, tune in tomorrow because my key clue is something I didn't talk about. But if you research the case, I think you're going to find it. You may find it. It's a little tricky, but it's a major importance to me. I could go one or two ways with this, but I think I'm going to... Maybe I'll give you 2 tomorrow. Certainly 1, for sure. That's Tuesday. That's tomorrow. Wednesday, the deep dive where we're going to get into everything. And then Thursday, we'll do the live chat as always. Friday, I will look at all your questions and comments on the previous video of the week, and I'll answer them. And then we'll start a new case the following week. But right now, headlong into researching this Girl Scout murders case. I'm telling you, those parents reading those letters from those kids, it's going to stick with me for a long time. Such strength in those parents. I don't know if I could do it. I just don't know. And I'm going to give kudos to some of those detectives throughout this series because they deserve it as well. Whether they got the right guy or they didn't, they should still be commended for the investigation that they did. And I'll let you know Wednesday what I think, who I think is responsible, and we'll go from there. So hey, that's it for Solved or Unsolved Monday. Girl Scout murders. Main's out.
All fear of